Amanda's words hit me like a slap across the face as she stood in my son's kitchen, her wedding dress hanging pristine behind her. The best gift would be if you disappeared from our family. She smiled that plastic smile I'd grown to hate. Permanently. Michael nodded in agreement, not even bothering to look at me. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me give this some context first. I need your likes and comments to know you're following along with my story. How did I get here? 3 years ago, I'd sold my beautiful Victorian home, the one my late husband Robert and I had lovingly restored, to give Michael and Amanda the down payment for their dream house. $87,000. My entire life savings handed over with a mother's unconditional love. They'd promised I'd always have a place there, always be part of their family. Now, the day before their elaborate wedding that I was financing, Amanda decided I was disposable. "You heard her?" Michael said finally, his voice cold. "This is supposed to be our special weekend. Your negativity is ruining everything." My negativity? I'd spent the morning arranging flowers, the afternoon helping with last-minute preparations, and the evening listening to Amanda complain about everything from the weather to the caterer. The only negative thing I'd done was suggest maybe we didn't need ice sculptures shaped like swans. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. Amanda shrugged, examining her manicured nails. "I don't know." "A hotel? Your sister's?" "Honestly, Dorothy, I don't care where you go as long as you're not here tomorrow." "This is my son's house too," I reminded her. "Actually," Michael cleared his throat, "it's more Amanda's house now. She's been handling all the finances, making the improvements. You just gave us some money once." Some money once. $87,000 reduced to some money once. I stood there in the kitchen where I'd cooked countless family dinners, looking at the granite countertops I'd helped choose, the custom cabinets my money had made possible. These people had taken everything I'd given them and convinced themselves they deserved it. That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted, like a gear clicking into a different position. "You're right," I said softly. "I should go." Amanda looked surprised. She'd probably expected tears, pleading, the usual dramatics she could later describe to her friends as Dorothy being difficult again. "I'll pack my things and be gone within the hour." Michael actually looked relieved. "That's probably for the best. Mom, we can talk after the honeymoon, once things settle down." Talk after the honeymoon. As if this was just a temporary disagreement about seating arrangements. I went upstairs to the guest room that had been my home for the past 6 months. Not my room. I wasn't allowed to call it that. Always the guest room, because guests eventually leave. As I folded my clothes into my suitcase, I could hear them downstairs, already planning how to rearrange the space. Amanda wanted to turn it into a yoga studio. Michael thought it would make a good office. Neither of them considered that maybe, just maybe, they should feel some guilt about throwing out the woman who'd made their perfect life possible. I paused at Robert's photograph on the nightstand. 43 years of marriage, and he'd never once made me feel unwanted in my own home. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I whispered to his image. "I'm not going down without a fight." But first, I had phone calls to make, sitting in my car outside their house. No, scratch that. Outside the house my money had bought. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer's emergency number. Margaret Chen had been handling my affairs since Robert's death, and she'd warned me about this exact scenario. "Dorothy, it's Saturday evening. Is everything all right? Margaret, I need you to pull the documentation on the house purchase. All of it." A pause. "Has something happened with Michael and Amanda?" I told her everything. Amanda's ultimatum, Michael's betrayal, the casual way they'd dismissed my contribution as some money once. Margaret listened without interruption, though I could hear her typing furiously. "Dorothy, I've been worried about this for months. The way they've been treating your investment as a gift rather than what it actually was." "What do you mean, what it actually was?" Another pause, longer this time. "You don't remember signing those additional documents? The ones I insisted on after you expressed concerns about Amanda's spending habits." My heart started beating faster. "Margaret, please tell me you protected me somehow." "Oh, honey, the $87,000 wasn't a gift. Legally, it was a loan with your name on the deed as co-owner. Amanda never signed the acknowledgement forms I sent over. In the eyes of the law, you own 35% of that house." I nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" Dead serious. Amanda kept forgetting to sign the paperwork, and you were so focused on keeping peace in the family that you never pressed the issue. But the mortgage company has you listed as a co-borrower. The deed shows your ownership stake. It's all completely legal and binding. Through the kitchen window, I could see Amanda showing off her wedding dress to someone on video chat, probably her mother. She was laughing, gesticulating wildly, completely oblivious to the conversation that was about to change her life. Margaret, hypothetically speaking, what would happen if I wanted to sell my share of the house? Well, as a co-owner, you'd have every right to force a sale. The other owners would have first right of refusal, of course. They could buy you out at current market value. And if they couldn't afford to buy me out, then the house goes on the market and the proceeds are split according to ownership percentages. I watched Michael appear in the kitchen window, opening a bottle of champagne, celebrating their freedom from the burdensome mother, no doubt. Margaret, I need you to prepare a notice of intent to sell. I want it delivered first thing Monday morning. Dorothy, are you sure about this? Once we start this process, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. They want me to disappear? Fine, but I'm taking my 35% with me. After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness, watching my son and his fiancée toast their future in the house I'd made possible. They had no idea that in less than 48 hours, their perfect little world was going to crumble. But first, I had one more call to make. Sunset Gardens Country Club, this is Jessica. Hi, Jessica. This is Dorothy Mitchell. I need to speak with your catering manager about tomorrow's wedding reception. Oh, Mrs. Mitchell, how exciting. The wedding's tomorrow, isn't it? How can I help you? I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. I need to cancel the reception. Cancel? But ma'am, it's less than 24 hours away. The food has been prepared, the staff scheduled. I understand, and I'm prepared to pay the cancellation fees. The thing is, I'm the one who signed the contract and put down the deposit. I believe I have the right to make changes. A rustling of papers. Let me check. Yes, the contract is under your name with your credit card information. But surely you want to speak with the bride and groom first? No need. I'm making an executive decision. Please cancel everything. Mrs. Mitchell, with respect, this seems like something that should involve the happy couple. I watched Amanda through the window, now trying on her veil for what had to be the 100th time today. The happy couple made it very clear that my involvement in their lives is no longer welcome, so I'm simply honoring their wishes. 20 minutes later, I was checked into the Hampton Inn across town, ordering room service and feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of taking control of my own life. My phone started ringing at 11:47 p.m. What did you do? Amanda's voice screeched through the phone so loudly I had to hold it away from my ear. I honored your request, I said calmly, muting the TV in my hotel room. You wanted me to disappear, so I disappeared. The country club called. They said you canceled our reception. Our wedding reception, Dorothy. There are 200 people expecting dinner tomorrow. I'm sure there are. That does sound like a problem. Michael grabbed the phone. Mom, this is insane. You can't just cancel our wedding because you're upset about sleeping arrangements. I didn't cancel your wedding. Sweetheart, you can still get married. I just canceled the reception I was paying for. You know, the one that was costing me $14,000. Silence. I'd never mentioned the cost before, always deflecting when they asked about money. Let me be their generous mother, while they remained blissfully unaware of the sacrifices involved. 14,000? Amanda's voice was faint now. The reception, the flowers, the photographer, the band. Did you think it was all free? Did you think money just materialized because you two decided to have a fairy tale wedding? But we can't tell 200 people there's no reception, Michael stammered. You're resourceful adults. I'm sure you'll figure something out. McDonald's caters now, I hear. Amanda was crying now, ugly sobbing sounds that might have made me feel guilty 6 months ago. Now they just sounded like the tantrums she'd been throwing since the engagement started. How could you do this to us? We trusted you. Trusted me? You literally told me to disappear from your family. I'm simply complying with your request. I didn't mean forever, Amanda wailed. I just meant for the weekend. Ah, I see. So I was supposed to psychically understand that when you said permanently, you actually meant temporarily. My mistake. Michael tried a different approach. Mom, please. We can talk about this like adults. Come back to the house and let's work this out. The house where I'm no longer welcome? The house where my presence ruins everything? I don't think so. Where are you even staying? Amanda demanded. That's not really your concern anymore, is it? You made it quite clear that my living arrangements are my problem to solve. I could hear frantic whispering in the background, probably them trying to figure out how to undo the mess they'd created. Can you at least call the country club back? Michael pleaded. Maybe if you explain it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a very clear business decision made by the person who was paying for everything. But what about our guests? What about Amanda's family flying in from California? What about them? You're still getting married. They can still witness that. They just won't get a free dinner afterward. Amanda grabbed the phone back. You're being vindictive and cruel. No, sweetie. Vindictive and cruel was telling the woman who's been supporting your dream wedding to disappear from your family. I'm just being fiscally responsible. This will ruin everything. Everyone will think we're broke. Well, now that you mention it, I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching them squirm. Now that you mention it, without my financial support, you probably are going to be broke pretty soon. That's another thing we should discuss. What do you mean? Michael's voice was tight with panic now. I mean, have you actually looked at your household budget lately? Do you know how much your monthly expenses are versus your income? More frantic whispering. Because I've been supplementing your lifestyle in ways you probably haven't even noticed. The grocery money I slip to Amanda when we go shopping together. The utility bills I pay online because you're always a little short this month. The car repairs, the insurance payments, the little emergencies that keep popping up. Those were gifts, Amanda said weakly. Were they? Because from where I'm sitting, they look more like an allowance. And allowances can be discontinued at any time. The silence stretched so long I thought they'd hung up. Finally, Michael spoke. What do you want, Mom? Now that was interesting. An hour ago they couldn't wait to get rid of me. Now they wanted to negotiate. I want exactly what you offered me. To disappear from your family, permanently, and I want to take my money with me when I go. By Sunday morning, my phone had 37 missed calls and 41 text messages. I ignored them all while enjoying room service breakfast and reading the Sunday paper like a civilized person. The wedding was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 9 a.m., there was a knock on my hotel room door. Through the peephole, I saw Michael in his wrinkled tuxedo shirt, looking like he hadn't slept. Alone. Mom, please, we need to talk. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your big day? That's what I need to talk to you about. His eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. Amanda's having a breakdown. She's locked herself in the bathroom and won't come out. Her mother is threatening to fly back to California. The whole thing is falling apart. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you work it out. Work it out? Mom, you destroyed our wedding. No, son. I removed my financial support from your wedding. There's a difference. He pushed past me into the room, and I let him. Sometimes you have to let people hang themselves with their own words. This is insane. Over what? A misunderstanding about sleeping arrangements? Sit down, Michael. Something in my tone made him obey. I remained standing, looking down at my 42-year-old son who was finally starting to understand that actions have consequences. This isn't about sleeping arrangements. This is about respect. This is about gratitude. This is about treating the person who made your lifestyle possible like a human being instead of an inconvenience. We've always treated you well. Have you? When was the last time you asked about my life, my interests, my feelings? When was the last time you invited me somewhere because you wanted my company, not because you needed my help? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I'll wait. The silence stretched uncomfortably. When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without Facebook reminding you? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of your personal bank? That's not fair, isn't it? Michael, in the past year, how much money have I given you and Amanda? I don't know. A few thousand here and there for emergencies. $37,000. His face went white. $37,000 in emergencies and little helps, and just until we get back on our feet, on top of the $87,000 for the house down payment. That's $124,000, Michael, more than most people make in 2 years. We were always planning to pay you back. Were you? Because Amanda's been shopping for a new car. You've been looking at vacation packages to Europe. Neither of you has mentioned paying me back even once. He slumped forward, head in his hands. What do you want from me, Mom? I want you to understand that I'm not your personal ATM. I want you to understand that kindness and generosity aren't infinite resources. And I want you to understand that when you treat someone badly enough for long enough, eventually they stop caring about your problems. So you're punishing us by ruining our wedding day? The casual cruelty in that statement, that my setting boundaries was punishment, confirmed everything I'd been feeling. No, Michael, I'm protecting myself by stopping the pattern of financial abuse. Financial abuse? That's ridiculous. Is it? You've conditioned me to believe that my only value to your family is monetary. You've trained me to expect crumbs of affection in exchange for major financial contributions. You've made me feel guilty for having needs and expectations while you take everything I offer for granted. I sat down across from him, leaning forward so he had to look at me. Yesterday, Amanda told me the best gift I could give your family was to disappear permanently, and you agreed with her. After everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed, you agreed that I should disappear. She didn't mean it. Yes, she did. And so did you. And you know what? You're going to get exactly what you asked for. He looked up sharply. What does that mean? I smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. It means you better figure out how to pay for your own lifestyle from now on. It means you better hope Amanda's parents are feeling generous. And it means you better start looking at apartments, because the house situation is about to get very complicated. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the legal documents you never bothered to read before your father and I helped you with that down payment. The ones that make me a co-owner of your precious house? The color drained from his face completely. That's right, sweetheart. I own 35% of your house, and I'm about to put it on the market. Michael stared at me like I'd just spoken in ancient Greek. You can't own part of our house. We bought it. We live there. With my $87,000 down payment, yes. Did you think that money just evaporated into the ether? But you said it was a gift. You said you wanted to help us get started. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Margaret's email from last night. Apparently, my lawyer had different ideas about protecting my investment. Would you like me to read you the relevant legal documents? This is impossible. Amanda would have had to sign something. Amanda was supposed to sign something. She kept forgetting to return the papers. Margaret kept them on file anyway. Michael was shaking now, either from anger or fear. You planned this. You've been planning this whole thing. Oh, sweetheart, if I'd been planning this, don't you think I would have done it before paying for your wedding? The truth of that seemed to hit him. I'd spent $14,000 on a wedding for people who just told me to disappear. If I'd been scheming, I would have pulled the plug months ago. So what happens now? His voice was small, defeated. Now you have a choice. You can buy out my 35% share at current market value, or we can sell the house and split the proceeds. We can't afford to buy you out. The house is worth $300,000 now. 35% of that is over $100,000. I know, I'm good at math. That's why I have money and you two are always broke. He flinched. We're not broke. We just have a lot of expenses. Michael, your combined household income is $8,000 a month. Your mortgage payment alone is $2,400. Add in car payments, credit cards, utilities, groceries, and Amanda's shopping habit, and you're spending more than you make every single month. How do you know all that? Because I've been making up the difference for the past 3 years. Do you think the money fairy was leaving cash under your pillow? The hotel room phone rang. I answered it while Michael sat there processing his new reality. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Jessica from Sunset Gardens. I have the bride's mother on another line. She's asking about reinstating today's reception. She says she'll pay all the costs if you'll allow us to proceed. I looked at Michael, who was listening with desperate hope in his eyes. That's very generous of her, Jessica, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. Mom, please, Michael started. I held up a hand to silence him. You see, Jessica, there are some family dynamics at play here that make it inappropriate for me to accept payment from other family members for an event I chose to cancel. I understand. Should I tell Mrs. Hayworth that the cancellation stands? Yes, please. And Jessica, send my final bill to this hotel. I'll settle up everything I owe for the inconvenience. After hanging up, I turned back to Michael. Amanda's mother was willing to pay $14,000 to save your reception. She's been planning this wedding for months. She invited half her country club. How nice for her. Too bad her daughter couldn't manage to be civil to the person who was originally paying for everything. Michael pulled out his phone. I need to call Amanda. We need to figure out what to do about the house. Go ahead. But Michael, when you talk to your wife about our new arrangement, make sure she understands something. He looked up from dialing. I'm not the same woman who walked out of your house last night. That woman was desperate to keep peace in the family at any cost. This woman is done being taken advantage of. You're really going to force us to sell our home? I'm going to exercise my legal rights as a co-owner. What you do with that information is up to you. He left without another word, probably to deliver the worst news of Amanda's life on what was supposed to be the happiest day. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Dorothy? Amanda's voice was barely recognizable through her tears. We need to talk. No, sweetie, we really don't. You made it very clear yesterday that talking to me wasn't something you were interested in doing. I was upset. I was stressed about the wedding. I didn't mean what I said. Of course you were upset. It must be exhausting pretending to tolerate someone you obviously despise. I don't despise you, Amanda. In the 3 years since you moved into the house I bought for you, you've never once thanked me. Not once. You've never asked about my life, my interests, my health. You've never invited me to anything unless you needed me to babysit or bring food or write a check. That's not true. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Silence. I'll save you the mental effort. Never. You've never called just to check on me. But you're Michael's mother. Your family. Yesterday you told me the best gift I could give this family was to disappear permanently. Today you're claiming I'm family. Which is it, Amanda? More crying, the kind of desperate sobbing that once would have made me rush over with tissues and comfort. Dorothy, please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll pay you back. Pay me back with what money? You don't work, remember? You're a full-time homemaker in a house you couldn't afford without my money. I'll get a job. That's a great idea. You should definitely do that. But it doesn't change the current situation with the house. What if we agree to pay you back for everything? All the money you've given us over the years? I almost laughed. Amanda, honey, you owe me $124,000. At minimum wage, it would take you about 6 years to earn that much. And that's assuming you never spend money on anything else. The silence that followed was the sound of reality finally sinking in. By 4 p.m., they'd called 16 more times. I'd answered exactly none of them. Instead, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant, enjoying a lovely late lunch and watching the local news coverage of a wedding disaster at Sunset Gardens. The reporter didn't mention names, but the footage of Amanda in her wedding dress, crying on the country club steps, was pretty unmistakable. Excuse me, aren't you Dorothy Mitchell? I looked up to see a woman about my age with perfectly styled gray hair and kind eyes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Barbara Hayworth, Amanda's mother. She gestured to the empty chair across from me. May I? This should be interesting. Barbara sat down with the practiced grace of someone who'd spent decades handling social crises. I wanted to thank you. That wasn't what I'd expected. Thank me? For showing my daughter who she really is. The waitress appeared, and Barbara ordered coffee. I waited, curious about where this was going. I've been worried about Amanda for years, Barbara continued. The entitlement, the way she treats people she considers beneath her, the complete lack of gratitude for anything. I kept hoping marriage would mature her. And now I've seen how she treats the woman who made her lifestyle possible. And I'm horrified. Barbara's coffee arrived. She sipped it thoughtfully before continuing. I offered to pay for the reception, not because I support Amanda's behavior, but because I felt responsible for the 200 guests who'd been inconvenienced. But you were right to refuse. Was I? My daughter needed to face consequences for her actions. Real consequences. The kind that can't be fixed with daddy's money or mommy's connections. I studied Barbara carefully. There was something refreshing about her directness. She called me hysterical about the house situation, Barbara continued, demanding that I loan them money to buy out your share. And I told her absolutely not. If she wanted to own a house, She should have treated the co-owner with respect. A woman after my own heart. Can I ask you something, Dorothy? What's your endgame here? Are you planning to force the sale? I'd been wondering that myself. Honestly, I haven't decided. Part of me wants to see if they can actually figure out how to support themselves without my money. Part of me wants to sell the house just to watch their perfect little world crumble. And the other part? The other part remembers that Michael is still my son, despite everything. Barbara nodded. I understand. But may I offer some advice from someone who's been enabling her daughter's bad behavior for 39 years? Please, don't save them from this. Whatever you decide about the house, don't cushion the fall. Amanda has never faced real consequences for treating people badly, and it's turned her into someone I barely recognize as my daughter. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. I'm flying back to California tomorrow. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands what it's like to love an ungrateful child, call me. After Barbara left, I sat alone with my thoughts and my phone, which was still buzzing with increasingly desperate messages. The truth was, I hadn't decided what I wanted my endgame to be. I'd been reacting, protecting myself, asserting boundaries. But now I needed to figure out what came next. The nuclear option was forcing the sale. Michael and Amanda would have to find an apartment, probably in a much less desirable part of town. They'd finally understand what it meant to live within their means. The merciful option was offering to sell them my share for less than market value, maybe what I'd actually put into the house. They'd still struggle, but they might be able to keep their home. The spite option was holding on to my ownership stake indefinitely, collecting my share of the property taxes and any improvements while watching them squirm every month. As I sat there weighing my options, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Michael or Amanda. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Virginia Beach Police Department. I'm calling about a report we received regarding financial elder abuse. My blood went cold. I'm sorry. What? We had a call from someone claiming that family members have been financially exploiting you and that you might be experiencing cognitive decline. They're requesting a welfare check. Those manipulative little snakes. Detective Rodriguez, I can assure you that I'm in full possession of my mental faculties. In fact, I'm probably thinking more clearly than I have in years. That's good to hear, ma'am. But we do need to follow up on these reports. Would you be available to meet with me tomorrow morning? I looked around the hotel restaurant, at the normal people living their normal lives, and felt a surge of pure fury at my son and daughter-in-law's latest manipulation. Absolutely, Detective. In fact, I have quite a lot I'd like to discuss with you about financial abuse. Just not the kind my family reported. After scheduling the meeting, I sat back in my chair and smiled. If Michael and Amanda wanted to play hardball, I was more than ready to pick up the bat. Time to show them what a real power play looked like. Detective Rodriguez was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes and the kind of patient demeanor that probably served him well in family disputes. We met at the police station Monday morning, and I'd brought my entire financial file. Mrs. Mitchell, I want to start by saying that the person who called us seemed genuinely concerned about your welfare. I'm sure they did. My daughter-in-law is very good at sounding concerned when it suits her purposes. I spread my bank statements across his desk. Detective, in the past 3 years, I've given my son and his wife $124,000. Would you like to see the documentation? His eyebrows rose as he examined the papers. Check after check, wire transfers, credit card payments made on their behalf. A pattern of financial dependency that looked exactly like what it was. This is substantial, he said carefully. It is. And yesterday, when I finally set some boundaries about how they treat me, they decided I must be mentally incompetent. I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail Amanda had left at 3 a.m. Dorothy, this is insane behavior. Normal people don't destroy their families' lives over hurt feelings. We're worried about you. Maybe you need to see someone, get some help. Michael thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. Detective Rodriguez listened, taking notes. Has there been any history of cognitive issues? Mrs. Mitchell? None whatsoever. I manage my own finances, maintain my own household, drive myself places. The only thing that's changed is that I stopped letting them take advantage of me. I showed him the house documents Margaret had sent over. My lawyer can verify that I'm a legal co-owner of their property. Everything I'm doing is within my rights as an investor, protecting her assets. And the wedding cancellation? I was paying for a reception for people who told me to disappear from their family permanently, so I honored their request. We talked for another 20 minutes. Detective Rodriguez was thorough but fair, and by the end, he seemed satisfied that I was mentally competent and financially savvy. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to close this case as unfounded, but I do want to give you some information about elder financial abuse resources, just in case. Actually, Detective, I think I've got the situation well in hand now. As I drove away from the police station, my phone rang. Michael again. Mom, the police called. They said they're not pursuing the welfare check. That's because I'm not the one being financially abused in this relationship, sweetheart. What's that supposed to mean? It means you and Amanda have been systematically draining my resources for years while giving me nothing but disrespect in return. The detective was very interested in my documentation. A long pause. Are you threatening us? I'm informing you that your manipulation tactics aren't working anymore. Mom, please, can we just sit down and talk about this like adults? We can, but not at the house I co-own, and not until Amanda apologizes for her behavior. She's sorry. She's been crying for 2 days. Has she? Because the voicemail she left me at 3 this morning suggested she thinks I'm mentally ill, not that she's sorry. Another pause. Where do you want to meet? Margaret Chen's office. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring Amanda and bring a realistic proposal for how you're going to handle the house situation. A proposal? Michael, I own 35% of an asset worth $300,000. That's my retirement security. You either buy me out or we sell. Those are your options. After hanging up, I realized something had shifted in our dynamic. For the first time in years, they needed something from me more than I needed something from them. Margaret's law office felt like neutral territory, all dark wood and leather-bound books. Michael and Amanda arrived 15 minutes late, looking like they'd been arguing in the car. Amanda's eyes were puffy and red, her usual polish completely gone. She'd clearly been crying for days, and part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. The other part remembered her words. The best gift would be if you disappeared from our family. Dorothy, Amanda started immediately, I owe you an enormous apology. I was stressed and overwhelmed, and I said things I didn't mean. Thank you. That's a start. She looked surprised, like she'd expected me to immediately forgive everything. Margaret spread the house documents across the conference table. Let's review the facts. Dorothy provided $87,000 for the down payment. The mortgage shows her as a co-borrower. The deed lists her ownership at 35%. Michael studied the papers like they might magically change. We had no idea about the ownership stake. You would have if Amanda had signed the acknowledgement forms, Margaret replied crisply. I sent them 3 times. I was busy with wedding planning, Amanda said weakly. For 3 years? Margaret's tone was beautifully skeptical. I let them squirm for a moment before speaking. The question now is how we move forward. I have a proposal. They both leaned forward hopefully. Option 1, you buy out my 35% share at current market value, $105,000. Amanda's face went white. We don't have that kind of money. Option 2, we put the house on the market and split the proceeds according to ownership percentages. We'd have to move, Michael said quietly. Yes, you would. To something you can actually afford. What about option 3? Amanda asked desperately. There is no option 3. Those are your choices. Margaret pulled out a calculator. If you sold the house today, after realtor fees and closing costs, you'd probably net around $270,000. Dorothy's share would be about $95,000. You'd have $175,000 to find new housing. That's not enough for anything decent, Amanda protested. It's enough for a nice apartment or a smaller house in a different neighborhood, I replied. You know, the kind of place people with your actual income should be living. Michael ran his hands through his hair. Mom, is there any way we can work out a payment plan? Maybe we could pay you monthly until we've bought out your share? I'd been waiting for this. At what interest rate? And with what collateral? You've already proven you don't honor financial agreements. That's not fair, isn't it? You owe me $37,000 in emergency loans that you never intended to repay. Why would I trust you with another $100,000? Amanda started crying again. This is going to destroy our lives. No, Amanda. This is going to force you to live within your means for the first time in your adult life. But what about our credit? What about our reputation? I almost laughed. Your credit? Honey, your credit is already terrible. You've been late on every bill for months. I know because I've been bailing you out. Margaret cleared her throat. I need to advise you that Dorothy has every legal right to force a sale. She's being more than generous by offering these options. How long do we have to decide? Michael asked. 30 days, I said. That should give you time to explore your financing options. As we prepared to leave, Amanda grabbed my arm. Dorothy, please, I know I hurt you, but we're family. Doesn't that count for something? I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. For just a moment, I saw the scared young woman behind the entitled facade. Amanda, family is supposed to count for something. That's exactly the point. 2 weeks into their 30-day deadline, I got an unexpected visitor. Barbara Hayworth stood on my hotel room doorstep with a bottle of wine and a determined expression. I hope you don't mind me dropping by. I got your hotel information from Margaret Chen. I invited her in, curious about what had brought Amanda's mother back to Virginia. I came to check on the kids, Barbara said, settling into the room's only armchair. And to talk to you. How are they doing? Terribly. Amanda's having daily panic attacks. Michael's working overtime trying to find a way to get a loan. They're fighting constantly. I poured us both glasses of wine, surprised to find I felt less satisfaction in their misery than I'd expected. Barbara, are you here to ask me to reconsider? Actually, no. I'm here to tell you about Amanda's father. That wasn't what I'd expected. Richard spoiled our daughter rotten, Barbara continued. Every tantrum was rewarded. Every consequence was cushioned. Every failure was someone else's fault. She sipped her wine thoughtfully. When Amanda was 16, she totaled her car driving drunk. Instead of letting her face the legal consequences, Richard hired the best lawyer money could buy and got the charges dropped. Why are you telling me this? Because I've watched my daughter become someone I don't recognize, and I finally understand that her problems aren't going to be solved by more money or more rescuing. Barbara reached into her purse and pulled out a check. Amanda asked me to give you this. It's for $25,000, a good faith payment toward buying out your share. I looked at the check but didn't touch it. And what did you tell her? I told her I wouldn't be her enabler anymore. That check represents Richard's life insurance policy, money I was saving for her inheritance. But I realized that giving it to her would just be repeating the same pattern. She tore the check in half. Barbara, that's a lot of money. Money Amanda hasn't earned and doesn't deserve. Dorothy, I want you to know that whatever you decide about the house, you have my support. Even if it means they lose their home? Especially then. Maybe having to start over will teach Amanda what work and gratitude actually mean. After Barbara left, I sat alone with my thoughts. For 3 years, I'd been Amanda's enabler just as much as her parents had been. Every time I wrote a check to cover their shortfall, I'd been teaching them that there would always be someone to catch them when they fell. The question was, what kind of lesson did I want them to learn now? My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom, we've been approved for a home equity loan that would cover $60,000 toward buying you out. Can we meet to discuss partial payment arrangements for the rest? I stared at the message for a long time. They were trying, which was more than they'd done in years. But a home equity loan meant going deeper into debt, not learning to live responsibly. I typed back, we can discuss it, but I want to see a complete household budget and a realistic plan for paying off all your debts, not just mine. His response came immediately. Anything you want, Mom. We just want to make this right. For the first time since this whole thing started, that sounded like progress. The budget meeting was enlightening in the worst possible way. Michael and Amanda spread their financial documents across Margaret's conference table like evidence of a crime, which in a way they were. Okay, I said, reviewing their monthly expenses. You spend $400 a month on restaurants. We both work long hours, Amanda said defensively. Sometimes we're too tired to cook. You don't work at all, Amanda. I mean, Michael works long hours. I moved down the list. $300 a month on Amanda's clothing budget. I need to look professional for social events. What social events? You don't have a job. Amanda's face was getting red, but I continued. $200 on premium cable and streaming services. $150 on Amanda's gym membership that you use maybe twice a month. $800 a month in credit card minimums for what appears to be shopping and vacation debt. Michael was adding numbers on his phone calculator. Mom, I know it looks bad. It looks like you're living a lifestyle that requires about $12,000 a month when you bring home $8,000. But with the home equity loan, we could pay off the credit cards and reduce our monthly expenses significantly, Amanda said hopefully. I looked at Margaret, who was taking notes with professional detachment. Amanda, you'd be borrowing against the house to pay off credit card debt. What happens when you run up the credit cards again? We won't. We've learned our lesson. Have you? Because I don't see any significant changes in this budget. You're still eating out constantly, still maintaining expensive memberships you barely use, still treating shopping like a hobby. Michael leaned forward. What would you want to see, Mom? What would convince you that we're serious about changing? Finally, the right question. I want to see a budget that reflects your actual income. I want to see you cooking at home, canceling unnecessary subscriptions, and Amanda getting a job. A job? Amanda looked horrified. Yes, a job. You're 39 years old with a college degree. There's no reason you can't contribute to the household income. But Michael makes good money. Not good enough. Apparently, since you've been supplementing it with my money for 3 years. Margaret cleared her throat. Dorothy, what exactly are you proposing? I'd been thinking about this for days. Here's my offer. You can buy out my share for $75,000 instead of the full market value of $105. But there are conditions. They both perked up. First, Amanda gets a job within 60 days and maintains it for at least 2 years. Second, you sell one of your cars and use the proceeds to pay down debt. Third, you stick to a realistic budget with no restaurant meals, no unnecessary shopping, and no new debt for 2 years. How would you monitor that? Michael asked. Monthly financial check-ins with Margaret. You provide bank statements, credit reports, and proof of income. If you violate any of the conditions, the full amount becomes due immediately. Amanda was shaking her head. That's like being in financial prison. No, Amanda, that's called being accountable for your choices. They asked for time to discuss it privately. While they huddled in the hallway, Margaret turned to me. This is either very generous or very cruel. I can't decide which. Maybe it's both. When they came back, Michael spoke for both of them. We accept your terms. All of them? All of them, Amanda confirmed, though she looked like she was swallowing poison. Margaret started drafting the agreement. I'll need this notarized and filed with the county recorder's office. As we finalized the paperwork, I watched my son and daughter-in-law sign away their financial freedom for the next 2 years. Part of me felt victorious. Part of me felt sad that it had come to this. But mostly, I felt like I was finally teaching them a lesson their parents should have taught them decades ago. Actions have consequences, and family isn't a free pass to treat people badly. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a lovely 2-bedroom place in a senior community with a pool and walking trails, when Amanda called with surprising news. Dorothy? I got the promotion. Amanda had started working as a receptionist at a dental office, and apparently she'd been good enough at it to move up to office manager. That's wonderful, honey. How do you feel? Exhausted. She laughed, and it was the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in years. But also, proud? I never knew I was good at organizing things. You always were. You just never had to use those skills before. There was a pause. Dorothy, I owe you an apology. A real one, not the panicked one from Margaret's office. I'm listening. I was horrible to you. For years. I treated you like an ATM and then got angry when you had feelings about it. I told myself you were just being dramatic, but the truth is I was entitled and cruel. I set down my coffee cup, surprised by how much her words affected me. What changed your mind? Having to work for money instead of just asking for it. Realizing how hard it is to save even $100 when you're paying your own bills. Understanding what you sacrificed to help us. And Michael? He's getting there. He still thinks you were too harsh, but he admits we needed to change. Through my window, I could see other residents working in the community garden. I'd signed up to help with the spring planting next week. How are things between you two? Better. Actually, we're talking more now that we're not constantly stressed about money. We cook together. We take walks instead of going shopping. It's nice. I'm glad. Dorothy, would you Would you like to come to dinner sometime? Nothing fancy. Just homemade spaghetti and maybe some conversation that isn't about money? I thought about it. The old Dorothy would have said yes immediately, desperate to restore the relationship. The new Dorothy had learned to protect her boundaries. I'd like that, but let's start with lunch in a public place. Baby steps. Of course. Whatever you're comfortable with. After we hung up, I sat quietly for a while, processing how different this conversation had felt from all the others. Amanda had sounded like an adult, taking responsibility for her actions, not a child making excuses. Maybe the lesson had finally taken. My phone buzzed with a text from Barbara Hayworth. Heard about Amanda's promotion. Thank you for not giving up on her. I texted back. Thank you for not bailing her out. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes love means saying no. And sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the opportunity to discover who they really are when no one's there to catch them. I'd spent 3 years being their safety net, and in doing so, I'd robbed them of the chance to develop their own strength. When I finally pulled that net away, they'd learned to fly. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And maybe that was the most valuable lesson of all. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the walking trail where I'd signed up for a seniors hiking group. Tomorrow, I was having lunch with a man named Frank who'd asked me out after we'd both laughed at the same joke during last week's book club meeting. At 68, I was finally learning what it felt like to be valued for who I was, not what I could provide, and that was worth more than all the money I'd ever given away. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.